Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. Yeah, and thanks so much, Michael, as well for joining. I was trying to call you on chat, but I'm happy that you have been able to join us. Yeah, so certainly, as I did earlier mention, that today we'll be focusing on certification, and Michael, who is my colleague at WRI, will take us through that session. And for the brief intro, Michael is our director in charge of Food and Land Use Coalition, that is FOLU, which I want to believe is an organization that is focusing on food system transformation, land use issues. And Michael brings in a wealth of knowledge on this topic that we are discussing today, around certification, either Rainforest Alliance, and I also want to believe Fairtrade as well. And today he'll be sharing with us some insights on how you as entrepreneurs can actually benefit from certification to grow your business. So thank you so much, Michael, and welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself. We'll have this session for the next 1 hour. And before you joined us, we had launched a poll just to get to know where the participants are in terms of understanding certification and perhaps what they would want to learn. So I want to believe at some point Amanda will be able to share the results. But welcome, Michael. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Samuel and Amanda. Just relocating to more comfortable position. Yeah, so as Samuel has already alluded, my name is Michael Onchabo. The country director for Food and Land Use Coalition in Kenya. So this is a coalition between many partners, basically as it stands now around 9 organizations. But basically in Kenya, we have 3 core partners. That is the World Resources Institute, AGRA and GAIN. And our main focus is on bringing transformational, meaningful change on food systems and land use systems in general. So we are like a platform that kind of champions any transformational discussions around food systems, circular food systems, and land use. Previously, I was serving as a director for Kenya Tanzania for the Rainforest Alliance. That's one of very common international sustainability voluntary standards. But previously, I've also worked for Fairtrade, which is also another international certification program. And of course, with knowledge of some other certifications, Scholarship, Global Gap, Organic, and the rest. Yeah, so I'm happy to speak basically on a topic around certification. And want to thank Samuel for this invitation and honor for me to speak to the SMEs that are undergoing this particular program. I think this is not my first time to provide this particular kind of discussion. I think somewhere around 2020, we had a physical meeting in Nairobi where I think, was it either September 2019 or 2020, thereabout, April? I'm not sure when, but I remember we had a session of a similar nature to all the businesses that were present, that were, I think, selected for that particular year. So, and of course, just to mention that it's an honor and it's a privilege to have those businesses that are or SMEs that are undergoing this particular program. And of course, it's good to also understand the topic around certifications. So generally, apologies that I was not able to put together maybe slides around the wide topic of certifications, but I will be happy to talk through and maybe respond to any questions around certifications. So I want to believe that most of us have had and you've come across various certifications, and I think like Samuel, you've mentioned, there was that poll that was asking whether any of our organizations is certified, and I think I saw either 8 or 9. Yeah, so at least a few of us have an idea of what certification is, but basically, if you wanted to define what's this certification, you just say it's, you know, some designated kind of credentials that are earned by either an individual or an organization to verify the, you know, legitimacy or the competence of that particular organization or that particular person to perform a particular task or job, but also as a form of compliance to either a given set of requirements, given standards. Yeah, so, and of course, when you are certified, then it means that you get a certificate or a license that then enables you to practice or to demonstrate your compliance or your credentials or your credibility to that particular certification. So there are quite a number of categories for certification. One I'll call maybe to begin with forms of certification, yes. There are mainly 3 forms. We have what we call corporate certifications. Those are mainly, for example, you know, internal certificate business lines. And most of them are mainly verifications, like verification protocols. For example, if you were selling, for example, tea to, say, Unilever, they could be having their own internal requirements, what they normally call verification protocols, like you have to meet these particular standards for you to sell your tea to us. So those could be kind of corporate certifications. But we also have what we call product-specific certifications. And this will be products, for example, a tea standard, and therefore you get probably a certificate indicating that indeed this is true tea, or indeed this tea has been manufactured following this particular laid down standard of processing tea, like the various process of maybe drying, of withering, of, you know, fermenting. So that would be very specific, or a cocoa standard, or a coffee standard, or, you know, tomato, or whatever product is that can be. So there are those ones that are very product specific, or an animal standard basically, or a meat standard. So we also have another form we can call profession-wide you know, forms of certifications. So that could be more of you know, service delivery in terms of either training, in terms of either legal services, in terms of either food safety services, in terms of, you know, given branches of professionalism, or engineering, you know, certificates. So yeah, so those would be kind of, you know, overall forms of certifications. But we also have, another classification that we can call indeed types, which I can say, especially relevant to us. We have what we call mandatory or regulatory kind of certifications or standards. So these ones are mainly those ones that are kind of either legally, which are legal requirements. Product to product, or from practice or profession to profession, or from corporate to corporate, but they will be kind of mandatory, and they are regulated in law of a given country or a given region. So those would be kind of mandatory for you to either access or that particular market, or for you to offer a particular service, or for you to sell, our products to that particular market. So those will be kind of mandatory. But we also have another type that is called voluntary sustainability certifications. And these are kind of not really mandatory. It's self, you either decide to comply or not. And those ones are now gaining a lot of traction in the global market of very many products. So mainly the voluntary ones they can also be, they can fall into the other three types that we mentioned. They can be professional, they can be product specific, they can be corporate, but they're not really mandatory as such. It's you to decide to comply and be certified to that particular certification program, and of course get a certificate for that. But of course, like I mentioned, the license or certificate demonstrates that of course you have complied to whatever laid down structures and requirements. And in the normal practice of certifications, we are globally guided by the global, standards of certification and auditing practices, which we call ISIL. It's a body that, of course, oversees any form of certification work, accredits certifications, and any form of maybe auditings or the practice generally around issuance of certificates. But also they are guided by global standards, for example, what we call the International Organization of Standardization, ISO. So it also gives various forms of specifications, either in manufacturing or in farming or in various industries. But mostly what is very relevant to us as SMEs mostly is around these certifications that probably will go to certify products or certify the various services that we offer. So mainly it will be in the space of mainly the voluntary or mandatory certifications. But generally the voluntary certifications have played a key role in managing sustainable practices that talk to probably production of given products, but also delivery of various either goods or services. So it's general framework that guides the sustainable practices around the production and delivery of various goods and services. Now, if you look or we globally look at various kind of systems of how certification happens, probably as guided by the ISIL principles, is that if, for example, you are a standard owner and probably you have a particular way that probably your clients or your service providers need to comply, it is obvious that then you do not have to necessarily, actually it's good practice that you cannot audit on that same standard or those same requirements, because you have designed them and probably you support your clients on how to obtain or attain those particular levels of certification. So in good practice and in general practice is that if an organization or a particular profession has a standard, then there will be other third parties, what we call independent third parties, that will over that particular certification for that particular standard or program. So it will either be a credential organization or what we normally refer to as a certification body or a certifying body, as some might put it. So that's a third, in like an independent organization that verifies clients or verifies organizations or verifies individuals as relates to the requirements that have been set or the specific standard requirements that have been set. So in general is that then that means that the accredited or the accreditation process is also regulated under the ISIL protocols. So assuming, for example, I have a particular standard that I want my clients probably who supply tomatoes to comply, then I will have to set the requirements, but I'll not go to audit whether they have complied, because that will then not comply to the normal certification protocol. So I will look for a third party that will kind of go and verify those clients of mine, whether they have really complied to my standard. And that is the general way of practice. So generally, there are various types of standards. So be it mandatory, be it voluntary. And according to the reports that has been done by, for example, the International Institute of Sustainable Development, they've documented that in the world, there are over, say, 500 various certifications that are ran. And even when you talk about the voluntary ones, there are very many. And they are measured in terms of either the clientele or in terms of hectares of certified area or volumes of the certified products. And some studies have also been done and kind of categorized in terms of, let's say, products or crops that emanate from production or farming practices in agriculture in terms of voluntary sustainability standards. They have also documented various kinds of, performance in terms of the various sustainability standards. So you will find, for example, one of the largest or the leading, basically, certification program that are certified most area and volume is documented. So those products and maybe areas that have been organically certified are now taking lead. And then you will find others, like, for example, the Better Cotton Initiative certifications, others, for example, like the Rainforest Alliance certifications, the Fairtrade certifications, Global Gap certifications coming, behind the organic certification programs. And for us probably to delve into various, we will not have time, of course, to delve into various certifications, but yes, mainly the the principles behind most of these certifications. Probably as we began, the era of, global certifications and the upcoming of strongly the voluntary sustainability standards, which are kind of global frameworks. They have been kind of, even if you looked across all standards and all certifications, they will follow some particular form of layout, which of course follows given standards. So, for example, you will find the standards having probably an aspect of either organizational development or administration, basically like at organizational level. So that those ones will speak to, for example, if it is a farm or if it is an organization which is composed of smallholders or a particular small business, to first of all understand how that particular production system or that particular service delivery is structured in terms of governance, in terms of financial, resources, in terms of support probably to group members if it's a group, or support to workers if it's a plantation. So it will be mostly around administrative issues. And most of the standards will also contain an element on either traceability or, how will you trace the products, either from farm to cup or from, if they have a process. The other principle some will basically have is on agricultural practice generally. So how the particular products or that particular certification goes through agricultural practices. So if it is, for example, a crop, there has to be elements of, soil aspects, variety selection, issues to do with agrochemicals application, issues to do with probably around how workers should need to protect themselves when they are applying those agrochemicals, issues around management of maybe empty agrochemicals after application, like the empty containers. So it will be mostly be aspects of agriculture if it is dealing with a product. But also there are elements strongly now coming in terms of environment. So whether it's a farm, whether it is a business, whether it is, a profession, what elements do that particular organization or individual have towards environmental conservation? So that will bring in aspects of either waste management or climate change, greenhouse gas emission control, and all environmental aspects. But most importantly, what I've seen in most standards or certifications now, they have a very strong approach towards human rights. So you will not miss aspects of how workers are treated, what services are provided to the workers that are either providing that particular service or are producing that particular product. So there will be elements around their wages, their payments, their maybe living and working conditions, their freedoms of expression, issues around either child labor, forced labor, discrimination, sexual harassment, and all that. Any human rights perspectives are mostly part of those particular certification requirements. So generally then, what will be the benefit of these certifications? In most cases, whether it is organic, whether it is fair trade, whether it is rainforest, whether it's global gap, I think the major determination, especially when we speak about producers, especially those ones engaged in agricultural products, the main consideration will be issues to do with having a competitive advantage. Basically, most of the markets where those products go require accreditation or require proof to show that indeed this particular product that is I'm either consuming or I'm dealing with is has come through a very successful or a very sustainable production system. For example, where workers are not exploited, where children are not used to produce or offer that particular service, or where deforestation has not occurred, or where any other human rights abuses are not there. It's not slaves who have produced this particular product, or there is no child trafficking in this particular product or service. So it will be, that kind of accreditation. So for you to have a particular certificate, then you will have demonstrated that you are very sustainable, you are very environmental considerate, you consider human rights, you consider all those other issues. And then it means you will have a competitive advantage in that the buyers or the consumers of that service or product then will have a higher, a confidential level that they need to then get your service or product. There is also an element of market access. There are some markets where probably you cannot sell your product unless you have some very particular certification. So if you want to target that market for your product, then you have no option than to get that particular certification that is required for you to access that particular market. Some other certification will also speak to efficiency. When you have that particular certificate, then even the consumers of that service, consumers of that particular product will be sure that you are very efficient in your production or in your service delivery systems. But also there is the element of professional credibility. When you have that particular certificate and you are able to demonstrate that I'm a certified accountant, I'm a certified organic farmer, then you have that credibility that people will really respect that kind of service or that kind of product. So and in a nutshell, there are very many kinds of certificates, like I mentioned, so we can't really go into depths of them. I will probably stop there and look at, I think I've seen a few questions coming in. Maybe I'll be able to address very specific questions that will be coming across. And if there's any additions that will be required, probably I will delve further into that. So I think I'll rather stop here and then give more room for engagement and discussions.
Thank you so much, Michael. Indeed, very insightful. Personally, I'm actually learning. This is a topic that I'm not really confident with to speak about, but listening to you, certainly I'm able to grasp very key information that is important even to some of the businesses here. Maybe before we jump to the question, there is Rainforest Standard. There's also Fairtrade. These are common names that we get to hear, especially in the sector that we are, in the restoration bit. Maybe you may want to share a little bit information. What does Rainforest really focus on, and what does Fairtrade focus on? I know you have mentioned that indeed the flow and the structure are kind of like similar. You might find the aspect around human rights on rainforest. You might find the aspect around environmental protection on Fairtrade, but maybe you can give us just some highlights so that we can be able to compare. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Samuel. So basically, if I maybe begin from Rainforest Alliance certification, this is a global voluntary sustainability standard that emanated, for example, its origins basically started on environmental and forest protection from the Amazon forests very many years ago, I think about 35 years ago. And the main focus was on putting measures and standards in place to protect the Amazon forest from, exploitation, from degradation, from deforestation. But then as, systems evolve, the standard kind of evolved over time to also focus on agricultural products, and mainly the agricultural products that could potentially lead to deforestation. For example, cocoa production that is likely to, encroach into forests, palm oil production, and for example, good products basically that are extracted from the forests. So among the very first products that were certified under the Rainforest Alliance program was like the cocoa I've mentioned, the palm oil, even the good products themselves, under what was then carved out of Rainforest Alliance to be called the Forest Stewardship Council certification, that focused specifically on sustainable management of forest resources and the extraction of good and non-good products from forests. But eventually it came out to other products like tea, coffee, hazelnuts, fruits, like avocados, even fresh vegetables, herbs and spices. At some point, we were even in livestock certification. At some point, we went even to climate smart agriculture certification. Yeah, but basically, it evolved over time. And despite the origin being from environmental and forest protection, it has now evolved into a more robust standard, which now focuses on actually 6 main chapters. So the first one is mainly on management, and that management chapter mainly focuses on the aspects of either a farm, which is either small or large scale, how it is managed, how it is structured, what are the boundaries, for example, where is that particular farm or group of farmers located, what are the issues of how, for example, grievance mechanisms are handled, how is the gender aspects contained or looked at in that particular organization. Do they have a system of checking their management capacities and efficiencies? So it's mainly about the management aspects. Then it has a topic or a chapter on traceability. So because mostly this certification is on now products like the ones I've mentioned, how are you able to trace the product from right where it was produced, how it has been processed, which probably middlemen or intermediaries have handled that particular product until it gets to the market or to the shelves. So that traceability is very important. So it begins from, for example, taking the geolocations of the producers or of the particular plantations with the volumes and the estimations, and how, whether there is any conversion along the way. For example, if you talk of tea, it is plucked in terms of green leaf, it's later converted into med tea. So all that traceability has to be accounted for in terms of how many grams of, or how many kilograms of green leaf were plucked, and how many were converted into real now med tea that is we take, from the shops. And that kind of traceability up to who first bought that particular product, who was the second buyer, or where did it finally land in. And then there are issues of shared responsibility, where they have brought in elements of the buyers of those particular Rainforest Alliance certified products need to like appreciate the extra efforts that have been taken by the producers of those certified products by way of paying what we call sustainability differentials and sustainability investments to support the producers. It has also a chapter on farming, which kind of describes and gives requirements around how you select the planting materials, how you monitor soil erosion or soil fertility, basically management, how you apply agrochemicals. So all aspects of farm management and maintenance of that particular crop, whether it is pruning, whether it is rejuvenation, and all the aspects of agriculture. And then there is a chapter on environment that also speaks to waste management, speaks to environmental conservation, speaks to wildlife conservation, speaks to elements around forests and the natural ecosystem conservation, but also on human rights, like all those aspects I mentioned: child labor, forced labor, discrimination, freedom of association, the pay, living wages, working conditions, and living conditions. If, for example, housing is provided, what are the conditions of those houses? So all that is looked at in terms of the welfare of the workers. And so that is, in a nutshell, what the certification contains. But then there are now what we call accredited certification bodies that will go to monitor whether the implementers of this particular standard have complied to all those requirements within that standard, and then they get the certificate. After they get the certificate, then they are licensed now by Rainforest Alliance to sell their products as Rainforest Alliance certified. And for fair trade, it is a more approach to fair market practices, where the main consideration is really to ensure that the producer gets a fair price as compared to the market price of a particular product. So you will find an element, for example, around the fair trade system setting what we call a minimum price. And what does that mean? I think they work on given data and agree that if it's, for example, cocoa, this particular year, the minimum price for the cocoa that goes to the market per kilogram will be sold at this particular price. So they set that particular minimum. But then they also have what we call a fair trade premium, which is basically like treated as a token by the buyers or the brand owners to appreciate the extra effort that this producer has put to get this particular certified product. So they will add what we call a fair trade premium. So in addition to the minimum price or the market price, the fair trade certified buyer is supposed to add a particular premium, which is now referred to as a fair trade premium. And the collection of those monies in terms of premiums then go into a particular centralized account of that particular organization. And the groups or the plantations then decide on what or how to utilize that particular fund that has come as fair trade premium from us. So in a year, they will have discussed that this year or last year we received this amount. What aspects, social development, our social fabrics do we want to support? Some have put those premiums into building clinics or hospitals. Some have put those monies into equipping schools. Some have put those monies into buying buses. Some have put into various interventions as per the needs assessment of the particular beneficiaries of that particular premium. So it is mainly kind of market driven, because for you to go into fair trade certification, it is now a requirement that you must already be having a buyer who wants to buy your product on fair trade terms and is ready to pay you the premium. So it will be meaningless for an SME or a business or a producer to go into fair trade certification without a commitment from a given buyer to buy their products at a premium or at a fair trade premium. So that's the uniqueness of the fair trade system. So it's a requirement that you must already have a potential and committed buyer who is going to buy your products. Otherwise, it will be senseless, it will be meaningless to pursue and invest to get fair trade certified when you don't have anywhere to sell your product on fair trade terms. So those are the only unique things. Maybe the parallels will be like, there is also strong markets, you know, like where people who believe that for us to buy some products, we need them to be this certified. So for example, I mean, it's known that German, it strongly will not buy most of the products that are not fair trade certified, because that is probably where they really believe on the fair trade you know, theory of change, or the way it is the principles that are inculcated in the fair trade system. In the UK also, most businesses or most buyers will not touch some products like tea or coffee if they are not RA certified. So there are those niche markets that probably will attract those particular certified products. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Michael. Indeed, a great session, getting to learn quite a lot. I was actually to ask a question around price, and especially in relation to voluntary certification. Why would I actually do it? But you have really answered it very well in terms of you as well able to actually get a higher price, but equally a premium price for the product that you have. Yeah, so that is clear. Amanda, I'm just wondering whether we do have questions, or it's good that we share the Menti poll and whether there are questions that are coming in. Yeah.
I've continued to put the Menti poll in the chat box, so if it's not at the bottom, I don't know if Fabiana or Samuel could just repost it. And just to take us back here, we can see how many people have responded so far. I'm trying to make this full screen for us. This is as full screen as it's getting right now. I'm not sure why it's not going into full screen mode, but we've had 31 people respond, and we have 12 people who've have some sort of certification. So hopefully maybe we can hear from you. I might even suggest anybody who has a certification, if you can write it into the chat box, and we can see what kind of certification you have. That would be very interesting. So please open the chat box and write down what kind of certification you have. And if you can, also your company name, country, and what your company does. That would just be pretty interesting that we could have that. So thanks everybody for filling this out. And for the people who are in the process, if you could also let us know what certification that you're looking for, that will be very interesting in the chat box. So hopefully a few people will do that. Now, the next one is what kind of questions are we seeing, and which one of questions can we maybe start to answer here with our speaker here. I have this one about import and export. Which certifications are essential? Import, export, and import are quite different, and it's truly challenging in the export sector. I'm not sure if that question is speaking to you, Michael. So let me see if you've got any sort of discussion around that.
Thanks, Amanda. Like I mentioned, various certifications, let me say they're important. It all depends on what service or what products are you producing, which is your target market, and that particular market, what is of key interest to that particular targeted market. So if it comes, for example, in terms of fresh produce, for instance, I mean, if it is vegetables, fruits, you know, all really the way any exporter or any buyer of fresh produce will mainly go for global gap. If you are addressing, for example, tea and coffee, like as it stands at the moment, it will be mainly Rainforest Alliance and Fairtrade. But also in deciding which one, it also depends on which particular market that you want to target. So, I mean, every certification is important. It all depends on what product are you producing, which is your target market, and probably if you are just exploring any market, we've had organizations doing all certifications, so that you don't really burn your fingers on just getting one and lose out on the other one. So like most tea companies or coffee, you'll find them with both RA and Rainforest Alliance and Fairtrade. But also on consumer products, directly like fruits, vegetables, like tomatoes, you'll find more going maybe into organic certification. So it really depends on what markets you're targeting, or what product are you producing.
Yeah, so yes, got to take a look at your market and what you're doing to identify what certificates you should go for. Let's see if there's any other questions that would be useful here. What are the kinds of certifications? I think we spoke about that one in the last question. Yeah. Why is the certification process so tedious and expensive that can be discouraging?
Yeah, that is very common. Actually, it is a tedious process. I will accept, and it's because of, for you as a producer to comply to all those requirements. Indeed, most of them are really strenuous. But also, you look at the other aspect is that it's because of the structure of the certification program. Because if, for example, I'm the owner of Rainforest Alliance standards, I'm training my producer to comply. And if I'm the one auditing, most likely I'll not be so expensive, or I will, there are some things probably I might overlook, but also that will erode the credibility. But in the effort that you are now bringing external organizations to come and do verifications and audits and certify on your standard, they will also be doing business, but they will also be, be paying their auditors. They'll have to travel, they'll have to eat, they will have to sleep. So all those kinds of, they take time to write those reports. So they also will require, that kind of expenses compensated, because they are offering you a service. And then when you look at also the international markets generally, there are so many aspects that really are on focus. For example, I mean, like the European regulations on deforestation the other day, it bring a lot of dimension. Like, we need to ensure that any product that is entering the European markets has not come from a deforested area. And how can you prove that? You can only prove that if you have a GPS location of that particular farm where that product was produced from. And what will be the cost of taking a GPS location of, for example, say a cooperative with 15,000 farmers? That will be damn costly, because you need an expert. You need people to walk around. You need them to be trained on how to accurately take those, GPS locations. So it's not easy, of course. But again, we have systems of how maybe certification schemes have tried to bring, to manage this kind of costs. For example, by merging, like, for example, maybe some of you could be, a good insight kind of certification program, wrapped up and matched with Rainforest Alliance from 2018 and 2019. And therefore, that means if you are now UT certified and you are Rainforest Alliance certified, you now only will go for one certification. So there are discussions maybe with other certifications to kind of merge. But there are also options. For example, if a farm is, for example, organic certified and Rainforest Alliance certified and Global Gap certified, instead of looking for a certifier on Global Gap, another one on Fairtrade, another one on Rainforest Alliance, you will be advised to look for a accredited certification body that can offer you or is accredited for those three programs, that is accredited for Global Gap, that is accredited for Fairtrade, accredited for Rainforest Alliance, so that when they visit your farm, out of that particular one visit, you will get those three certificates at the same time. We call those ones like kind of combined audits. So they can come like 4 auditors or 3 auditors, but give you 3 certificates from the same audit, because basically, like I mentioned, most of the aspects will be the same, either on workers or on environment or on management or administration or on agriculture. They will be basically the same, not very much different. So there are always those devices on how probably, interventions on how the cost can be brought down.
I would think that was useful. I found another question in here that I think we could go to. We have about 5 minutes left. So do you know any resources? This question is there a platform that we can use to find out which certifications we would need for different markets and countries? And so, for instance, trading plastic products in Germany. And a following question was very similar, which is if there is any apps that could help with the documentation for the certification. So I think in those 2 questions, we're pretty much looking at if there's any resources that that you've come across in your time in the industry that can help businesses prepare for certification.
I don't think there's really an app that will contain all these types of certifications together. So I don't know of any. But I only know, those organizations that have done studies that have documented on various certifications and probably what those certifications speak to. For example, if you Google, for example, the International Institute for Sustainable Development, I think they have documented a lot of stuff around certifications. I mean, various types of certifications, what products they mostly speak to, where the markets are, but also even ISEAL, any ISEAL publications, ISEAL, ISEAL. So that could also give an indication of various types of certifications that they have accredited and probably where they are and maybe their largest markets. But there is no really an app that you can go to find information about all these types of certification schemes. In terms of what I'm seeing here for the apps, meaning like softwares to reduce on the paperwork, that will depend on each individual certification. For example, Rainforest Alliance has come up with a digital platform where they would, conduct internal inspections for their group members or for the plantations and put that into soft copy where the auditors can verify without necessarily doing a lot of paperwork. But that will depend on different certifications schemes.
I saw one more question here, which is, let me see. Are there circular economy certifications that we can get? So again, that's getting back to your different sectors you're in, but I thought that might be an interesting one for somebody who considers their business as a part of the circular economy. Is there any certifications you've seen that have been common to those kind of industries?
Yeah, actually, like I mentioned, there are so many certifications in the market. So there are those ones that certify the circularity of a given business. So they look at how well you've managed recycling aspects and utilizing any other resources that you have, any type of waste, how you get it into your systems. They're quite I'm not very sure of the specific ones, but they are in the market. If you wanted to find out, I mean, if you Google out, you can find out those particular ones that could look at. I mean, even, for example, the International Trade Center, ITC, maybe if you Googled it, will give an indication of those kind of schemes that operate around the circularity, because ITC has kind of, you know, so much focused on circular systems and the blue economy, such kind of approaches. So they could give an indication of specific schemes that one can go to.
Well, I think that this might be all the time that we had for questions at the moment. So I want to pass back to Samuel, perhaps for a little closing today and some next steps.
Yeah, so once again, Michael, thank you so much for this insightful session. I know this is a topic that can take days, for sure, but you have been able to give us a highlight of what certification are. Right now, we do know the different categories. We have voluntary, we have mandatory, and even different types. I saw a question on whether it's possible to certify a service. And certainly you have been able to tell us that indeed there exist different types of certification, including one for services. So thank you so much for this discussion. Maybe in future we can get adequate time to be able to even, for example, look at rainforest as an example and just go topic by topic and see what are some of the questions that are in there. But this is a good beginning. I want to believe for those who did not know about certification, at least they do have an idea of what certification are, the different types and all that. So thank you so much, Michael. We really appreciate. And for the team for joining our last peer-to-peer session for the 2023 cohort. It's been amazing. We have been able to host more than 13 sessions this year. And I want to believe it has been an exciting one and a fruitful one. You now have different views of different business model and also understanding of different topics within the restoration space. So thank you so much. Maybe back to you, Amanda, on the next step. I know we'll be meeting soon with the whole team. Maybe Amanda, you may want to talk about the graduation ceremony. Thank you.
Oh, sure. So everybody, check us out. We are going to have, I'm going to send you a calendar invitation, most likely today. So you might see it today or tomorrow, depending on where in Africa you are. And when you go to sleep, for our ceremony session that we're going to have August 10th. And then on the 11th, we'll announce the top 15. We hope that you have been able to finish the survey by now. Fabiana, I'm not sure if you have any latest updates on that survey, and we'll be reaching out to you and reminding you one more time up till the deadline. It's a, again, it's a response so that we can get better and incorporate your ideas into next year's program. And I think that will be it, except for Mark, August 15th. Because for the top 15 on the 15th, that's when we'll have our welcome call and we'll go over a lot of what the second stage of the Land Accelerator will look like with regards to mentorship and travel and work that we're going to be able to put together for you. So that's all of my announcements. I just wanted to say thank you to Michael. It was a pleasure to get to see you. And I was trying to think of when that was. We were in Kenya in September 2019 and also in something like September 2021. So I think it was the 2019 one where we were.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, perfect. Well, then thank you guys so much one more time and have a fantastic day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
bye-bye,
much.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Au revoir. Au revoir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye. Bye.